on. Call to order Board of Zoning Appeals for August 14th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 24th, 2023.
I recommend we approve the minutes from July 24th, 2023.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Knoll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We'll take the left hand in that case.
Yes.
Mr. Noble. Next up is there any special requests or continuances?
Chairman of the board, Director Russell Brown, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100, Indianapolis, here on BZA 2022-046. As you know, we continued this case last month based on some additional questions and requests that came from the meeting with Councilor Gibson immediately prior to your meeting. We did review those requests and provided additional information to the file on those requests and subsequent conversations with the administration.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
is your microphone on?
Because we can hardly hear you.
Do we know if his microphone is on? Mr. Nelson, do you know how that works?
IT would.
Okay, great.
That's beyond my view.
I can hear you, but it's not nearly as loud as it normally is.
We'll test.
Maybe tap the mic.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Thank you.
As you know, we continued this last month. We reviewed those requests that came from the meeting with Councilor Gibson and provided a letter to planning staff on August 4th. We understood that was not provided to you because it was considered the public hearing was closed on this matter. That said, I do have hard copies of the letter. Would make a special request this evening to allow this letter to be submitted to you and to the file before the variance of use petition is filed. Voted upon. You have additional individuals with us, including AF, our traffic engineer, racetrack tracks on staff. And our request tonight would be to allow this letter to come and become part of the file for your consideration for BZA 2022-046.
Okay, so just some points of clarification I'll probably need from either staff or Mr. Foster. Public hearing has been closed, so we cannot have a public hearing on it without additional notice. If we admit just the letter tonight, is that considered public?
Evidence.
Yes, that would be admitting new evidence, so, and we would have to reset off, renotice, to open the public hearing to present evidence.
So therein lies the challenge. We can certainly accept it, but then we are starting a 15-day notice clock again.
That's the first question. Yeah, I guess if we would ask them if there's questions, the board would be given the opportunity to answer those questions. Otherwise, you take your position.
You want to proceed with what's already been submitted?
Yes.
Then we will. Any other special requests or continuances? Seeing none, then we'll move on to findings of fact before we go to the docket. So BZA 2023-026, which was a development standards variance from Randy Richards for 324 Suncrest Drive.
Consideration of statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as a final decision. The final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-026.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Knoll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BCA 2023-028, a development standards variance by petitioner Larry Harris for Gilligan's Company, Popeyes, for 270 North State Road 135.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-028.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. BCA 2023-029, which is development standards variance by Joel Fritz on behalf of 1173 Airport Parkway.
Mr. Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted to the record as our final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-029.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. Milburn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Next up is old business, and we will start with BCA 2022-046, which is for racetrack. Question approval of a use variance in order to operate a vehicular gasoline with convenience sales development at 1694 East Main Street. Vehicular gasoline with convenience sales not a permitted use for industrial medium zone. We have heard all the public hearing on this through a couple different sessions. Is the board allowed to ask additional questions, or is it truly closed?
You can ask questions of the petitioner or to staff, but the petition, the public hearing is closed and new evidence should be submitted in, or new statements or testimonies shouldn't proceed, but if you had a question, I think that is acceptable.
Okay. Any questions for the petitioner for 46?
That's my error.
Mr. Milburn? Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Peters?
Nope.
I have none either. So with that, we've already admitted we've already voted to admit all the evidence, correct? So we move on just to a vote. All right, take a motion on the ballot, 2022-046, to allow the gasoline with convenience sales at the undeveloped parcel northeast intersection of I-65 and Main Street, currently zoned industrial medium, where the requested use is only permitted in commercial medium and commercial large zones.
Chairman, I propose that we approve this petition with the condition of the signage to comply with section 100308 L2, gasoline sales signage requirements pending any variances that are granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
The motion by Mrs. Peters to approve with the condition. We just need a second to take a vote. Second by Mr. Milburn to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion is denied 3-2. With that, next up is docket BZA 2022-047, which there's no 47 without 46.
Yeah, we would request withdrawal of petition 47.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
To
Oh, not for, for the 47?
Yeah,
Or for 46.
46.
I need a motion to direct the corporation council to draft written findings of fact for BZA 2022-046. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the corporation counsel's office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2023-046. Said findings,
Mr. King, it's 2022.
Oh, for 2022, sorry.
On this one.
BZA 2022 petition number. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. You're in favor?
Yeah.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, for all those that were here for racetrack, I would give you a minute or so if you want to vacate, leave, and then we'll get on with new business. Thank you. Next up is new business BZA 2023-030. This is for 28-30 East Main Street. Petitioner Sean Fair requesting relief from the section fences and screens, allowing a 8-foot fence in a residential zone. All those wishing to present, please stand. And is anyone online wishing to speak to this docket? Okay, seeing none. Are all the notices and everything in order?
Notices are in order and in our file.
Okay. I'll have you be sworn in by our secretary.
And I need to admit,
Oh,
it's by
sorry.
copy of the child development ordinance to the record.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury, testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
Make
We
sure
have
you
a
sign
copy
in.
of the staff report for him.
Okay, perfect.
Sign in.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. And then your name and address for the record.
Sean Fair, live at 30 East Main Street, Greenwood, Indiana, 46143.
And Mr. Fair, there should be a
Sign in.
paper up there to sign in as well, if you would, before we're finished here. All right, tell us why you're here.
Basically, I mistakenly built my fence too high, and they let me know that that wasn't in the code, and then now I'm here to make the variance or whatever I need to do to make it so I can keep it, basically.
Okay. And you have the answers to your statement of reasons on the report they just gave you, or on the staff report they just gave you.
Yes.
We will need to go through those and get them read into the record. So number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
It will not affect property values or encroach over property lines. It's basically just cosmetic. The lattice at the top is to make the fence look high and bring better value to 30 East Main Street.
okay, number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
It will not decrease or affect property value in a negative way. In fact, opposite will be the case.
and then number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The additional height provides more privacy in our backyard. This will add property value once we build our back deck and garage in the rear of the property. Without it, privacy would not be as great.
and then number four, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Anything else you'd like to add about the additional 2 feet?
Yeah, basically, it's not really for privacy. It's kind of, we just wanted that high-end look, kind of a customized, with everything else that we did to that property. We just kind of wanted to make it pop, and that's why we want to keep that fence the way that I built it. I didn't know I was violating the code, so I stopped, and I've got some material out back now that's kind of rotten, but I'll get all that figured out once you guys give me the green light to go ahead.
Okay. Staff?
This statement is similar to the statement that you heard for the last fence variance. We are unfavorable of the 8-foot fence due to that exceeding our fence height by 2 feet and the visual impact of a significantly taller fence can disrupt the harmony of the surrounding properties. So with that, we were unfavorable of this petition.
Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Fair?
No, I don't know if we can pull a picture of it, but it doesn't look unfavorable at all.
Sure, we've got it, I think, in our packet here, which I can see, yeah, we can see the lattice, and I've got questions about that we'll do after I close the public
Okay.
hearing. Mr. Manson, were you wanting to speak?
Yes, if I could, please, thank you.
Oh, you can
Sworn
keep
in.
that.
Yeah, I need to get you sworn in. I don't think you actually were sworn in. so-
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury, testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge?
And then your name and address for the record, and if you would also sign in.
Thank you. Jeffrey Madsen, contiguous property owner 121 South Meridian Street. Here on behalf in favor of the petition. The fence extra 2 feet does not affect our property at all. The way it's situated, it's not visible from Main Street, so it's not a traffic concern. Going down the alley, it's far enough back off the other, that's not a concern either. We have known, my wife and I, 31-year or more than 30-year property owners. I have no problem with the petition whatsoever. In fact, the way that Old Town is built, it's not hard for me to believe that he didn't know that that's what the record was, because you see everything, a mixture of everything in that Old Town area. So it's not like everything has got a homeowners association and everything looks the same. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he didn't know that, because we certainly don't know it. But we're in favor of the petition, and it doesn't affect our property at all. And the overall project has been nothing but positive in the area. If anyone knows the history of that, actually 4 addresses at one time. I guess it was 4 units of apartment complex.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Fair, anything additional before we close the public hearing to add to that?
I'll leave it in your guys' hands.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Questions from the board, Mr. Mole?
So I know you guys are neighbors, and rest of the neighbors, have you talked to them to see how?
Yeah, my neighbor.
And Mr. Fair, you come on back up. Thank you.
Sorry, this is my first time.
Oh, you're good. Oh, no problem.
The neighbor if you're looking at the front of my house, just to the right, that's Ben and Chelsea. They love the fence, they love the project that I'm doing, and then right next to them on the other side is my cousin-in-law, I guess my sister's or my wife's cousin. They love it too. The house to the left of me is an Airbnb, but the guy that's living there is supposed to be like rent to own or something, I'm not sure. But he says it looks awesome too. I mean, he isn't here tonight, but overall, I'm getting a really good vibe from everyone around it, that they like the project, and the lack of crime coming from that address now is also probably a benefit.
I say you guys did a really good job, so kudos to you.
Go ahead, okay.
I'm good.
Mr. Milburn?
No.
Mr. King? No. Mr. Peters?
You mentioned that you haven't finished.
Well, that was
That's
the
correct.
other side of the fence. Once I got the zone violation, I just stopped
Okay,
all work. So the other side basically is gonna match that, and then it'll go along the back of the house.
now if I'm
Or
looking at this
backyard.
correctly, 6 feet is the opaque part where you can't see through. and
Correct.
2 feet is the
The
lattice. Okay. Okay,
And it's actually about 22 inches.
thank you.
So my question is, so it will run, and it runs, looks like through the little kind of alleyway back end where it faces, correct?
Yeah, and then there's a retaining wall back there. It will actually turn right there and go along that retaining wall.
Okay, and the 2 feet is added on top of the permanent 6 feet, so the 2 feet is not permanent to the structure, is that correct? Like that 2 feet could be,
Well, I had to, basically, I've got posts that are 8 feet tall,
okay,
and then the 6 feet is attached, and then the 2 feet is attached to the top of it.
so the posts do go 8 feet.
Yes,
So you would have to cut those posts.
Basically, yeah.
and everything to remove, okay. And I guess I have a question on the fence policy, with it not being completely opaque for the top 2 feet, does that make a difference?
No, it doesn't. We do have, this isn't, violating any opacity, ordinance or standard that we have. If a fence protrudes, past the front edge of the house, then we do need to have some, transparency, 50% transparent and 4 feet. But when it's behind the house, that front line of the house, which this fence is, our requirement is 6 feet in height, and it doesn't elaborate on transparency. You could have a full privacy fence, 6 feet is just the cap for that height.
Okay. Now I think it looks very nice, for us, when it comes to statutory criteria, obviously, I don't think it harms the value of the property, I think it harms the value of the neighboring property. where we get sticky sometimes is strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance and resulting in practical difficulties. And I get this, I see the staff's stance there. Monetary reasons are not typically practical difficulties. So I think for me, the area, I think Mr. Matson mentioned, Old Town Greenwood is a very eclectic area with a lot of different things. There's not a lot of commonality. So one could make the argument that that becomes a little bit of a practical difficulty. The fact that it's not completely opaque, I'm just trying to think through number 3. So
Well, I was gonna say, the big difference from the previous one, that fence was all the way up versus this is just more decorative, I think.
right.
I think that's the big difference, how I'm looking at it.
And
I guess I'm concerned about the staff's comment about disrupting visual harmony. I don't see any harmony in that whole.
in that whole
I
area,
mean, it is eclectic, everything is unique. And I think the thing that I'm looking at is the visual appearance. Is it gonna add to the appearance for visitors to Greenwood, because they'll pass right by it on Main Street? Is that something that's gonna be a problem? I mean,
Well, and then 2 doors down is what a commercial building is like.
right.
you know,
Right. Well, and most of this is not along the main street that I can tell. It's along the alley, it's along
mhm.
sidewalk area, it looks like.
Yeah, a little bit from the main, this is the
Yeah,
front,
so you'll see a little bit of
but
it.
I'm seeing this as mostly
It's mostly-
cosmetic for the back and just a little bit on the front.
It certainly is an improvement. Okay. I have no further questions. I will take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance Comprehensive Plan, testimony of petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Knoll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I take a motion on the docket itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve this request.
With
You
any
know, With
conditions?
the condition, well,
No
that's,
conditions.
Yeah.
we had to cross that out,
You
right?
cross that out, yes.
So with no conditions,
No conditions.
a second.
A motion to approve with no conditions, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Take a motion to direct Corporation Council draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, move that we direct the Corporation Council's office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BCA 2023-030. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. You are good to go. You can proceed, work with staff on anything as needed, but we'll take final action in a couple weeks. So
Commissioner, members, thank you for your time.
thank you, Mr. Fair. All right, next up is BZA 2023, 031, Development Standards Variance for 500 East Pearl Street. Petitioner is Sarah Wilson, requesting relief from 3 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, section 10-3-9 for fence height to allow a 6-foot fence in a front yard. Section 10-3-9 to allow a fence in a front yard to exceed 50% opacity. And 3, visibility triangle to allow a fence to be partially located within a visibility triangle for a rear alley. All those wishing to present, please stand. Before I have you get sworn in, are all the notices and everything in order?
Yes, they're all in the file, correct.
Mr. Foster?
And admit a copy of the, certified copy of the final development. yes.
Thank you. All right, be sworn in by our secretary.
We're on the premises for perjury, testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge.
All right, who wants to start? She's more than welcome to assist you.
Good evening. My name's Sarah Wilson. I'm the owner of 500 East Pearl Street. I moved into my house.
One second, I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson. Also, when you get a chance, be sure to sign that in. You can do that now or before you leave, but we just want to make sure.
No one's after you, so you can.
It's just so we get it,
After and sign it.
so we get it right in our documentation. Okay.
I own 500 East Pearl Street. I moved there earlier this year. The fence was pretty dilapidated, so I knew that was something that I wanted or needed to replace. It's just my daughter and I there, so definitely high on my priority list. And when the storms came through that brought the tornadoes and high winds, part of the fence went down with that, so it moved to the top of my priority list. Similar to the last gentleman, I didn't know I was in code violation, so the fence had been completed, and I got the notice that I was actually in violations. The nature of the 3 violations, I think, is due to I'm the corner lot, so what I would consider my side yard, unfortunately, is considered my front yard, which I think is creating multiple violations there. I was having an issue with people cutting through the yard and going right up adjacent to my window, both my kitchen window and my living room window, and with just my daughter and I decided to add that little extra section there that wasn't a part of the original fence line, just for added safety and security.
Okay. You have your answers to the statement of reason?
Yes, I do.
And I believe the answers are the same for all 3, is that correct? According to the staff report, that your answers
Very
were
close,
identical.
yeah.
So I'm gonna have you state your response like we did with the last gentleman. I just need you to confirm your answers apply to all 3 requests.
Yeah.
This isn't your.
Yeah, those are the statements we
Okay.
work on. Yeah, we just combined them all because it's very similar to work on. So you're good. Yep, just those answers.
So, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The fence is in new, great condition and provides privacy and protection from car traffic without affecting the safety and welfare of others. The fence is not in front of the home, however, since it's a corner lot, the side yard is considered a front.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
Most of the fence was already existing and was replaced. The new additional fencing adds safety to my home for myself and my 2-year-old daughter Delta here without adversely affecting neighbors or the community.
Number 3, the strict application of terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The house is a corner lot, so the side yard is considered a front yard. Due to this, it limits the height and placement potential to act as a privacy fence, which was the intended desired effect for the safety and our privacy.
Okay, and then number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Anything else to add? Or does anyone else want to add anything?
I've got a couple of my lovely neighbors, my
Come
dad
on up.
here.
And your name and address for the record, and also I'll need you to fill that out as well.
Sure thing. My name is Jan Willis Tidwell. I live at 51 Thomas Street, the only address on Thomas Street. I live directly across to the east. Her driveway is actually on Thomas, but her front door's on Pearl.
Okay.
The side yard, the fence is the exact height of the one that's been there for, I've been there 35 years, so it's been there about 25 years. And yes, the replacement is gorgeous compared to that. There's an alley that goes right to the north of her property. The fence has been exactly where it was. All of us neighbors are totally used to that fence being there. The new addition to the fence does not block my view of anything, does not block any of the neighbors that are, I have a neighbor right next to me on Pearl and Thomas that would be across also. The owners, I don't know, they're leasing, the leasing person there that lived there said no problems. I can even tell you that she talked about people cutting through her yard, even the mailman was cutting through her yard. I believe her dad happened to come out of the porch because he wasn't sure. I mean, he was right next to the porch. So he walked right past her two windows she was speaking of. And I happened to be going, who is that? And I saw her dad come out, and she had just moved there. So that wasn't a pleasant experience for her dad. I have no problems if I can speak for some of my neighbors who, if anyone who's been around before might know them. Charles Skills, excuse me. Mr. Skills just worked for the ordinance, no, wrong name. Been there longer than me, he's over 35. The next neighbor down would be Dennis Graves, who just got done working for the city in the ordinance department, driving around. Been a Johnson County Sheriff, he's been there longer than me. He told me he has no problems. I don't believe they answered to the papers that sent out and any negativity at all.
Okay.
Pretty much, do you have any questions for me?
We'll get to questions here in a
Okay,
second, so
thanks, appreciate
thank
it.
you so
Let me write
much.
this down.
Staff? Oh, sorry, there's one more, sorry, my apologies. Come on up. Oh, good question. I believe so. I thought they all she did share. Okay. Name and address to the record.
Amber Barnes, 490 East Borough Street.
All right, Ms. Barnes.
I am the neighbor directly next to her. That fence absolutely does not bother me one bit, or my children, and I can testify that the postman does walk straight through the yards, and he walks straight through ours. He is scared the daylights out of me. With 4 kids myself, it's kind of scary. That fence that, the older fence that was replaced, we've been there for 10 years, and it has, she didn't change anything except for just the looks, the location and everything was the exact same.
Appreciate that. All right, staff.
And I got,
Oh,
one more.
one more. Come on.
And thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. See you guys. My name is Mark Wilson, and I am Sarah's father, and also her real estate agent, who helped sell the house. So I was familiar with the dilapidated fence before. She tried to replace it exactly as it was before. She did add the portion on the side yard where the sidewalk is, because people do come off the street right next to her window. And we didn't understand the side yard, front yard, that the gentleman from code enforcement explained to us. But I wanted to also point out that there's only one address on Thomas Street. I have sat for hours now over the past few weeks watching people come out of the alleyway to the north. There is nobody using that alley, basically. And if you see in the photos, there is a portion of the fence is angled, and that angle gives visibility. Anything to the left, which is north, people would be turning right. You can see anybody coming that way. With that angle, you can also pull out into the road and see anybody coming from the south. Thomas is probably the shortest street in Greenwood, I believe. Well, yeah, one address, and it doesn't even get used that much. Basically, it is the foot traffic that comes through there. We hope that you will consider this. I think it improves property value, of course. It looks a lot better. We appreciate the gentleman from code enforcement who walked us through this process. And if you have any questions, we'll happily answer.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else before I ask staff? I think, okay, now staff.
We did receive this morning one letter of remonstrance against the variance, which I can read to the record now. Right, it is from Martin Sedgwick, the owner of 490 East Pearl. I think we had heard from the resident in favor, but this the owner. Good morning, I am the owner of the adjacent property at 490 East Pearl Street. I respectfully request that the petition for variance be denied. I am against the variance request because the fence blocks the view from the front of our house to be able to see down the street. It further blocks the view when exiting the alley, both of which create a safety issue for vehicles and pedestrians. I am not able to make the meeting this evening, either in person or virtually, and respectfully request that this email be presented to the board. Thank you, Martin W. Sedgwick. 370 Commerce Parkway West Drive, Greenwood, Indiana, of course.
And then staff, you had a favorable opinion, I believe.
Yeah, we have no objections to the statements of reasons for this variance request.
Thanks for clarification. No objections, I should say. Would you like to respond to the letter, Ms. Wilson, or anyone on your behalf?
I've seen the gentleman that did write the letter once. The front of his house, that house should actually face Pearl Street and not Thomas Street, so I don't see how the front of his house has anything to do with it. The porch on that house is on Thomas Street. So it's straight across her front to, I didn't really want to, like I said, Robin is the lady that lives there with her son, and they've been there 3 years. She said to me, who uses the property, etc. She had a problem.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We'll close the public hearing. Questions by the board, Mr. Mullins?
Just looking at Google Earth for a second, so the neighbor next to them, the same is blocking the view?
Yes.
The neighbor on the corner to the east, I believe.
Yeah.
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 Did they say 490?
Yeah.
490 East Pearl?
Yeah, it's the house to the left.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's the
490.
tenant, that's actually the tenant who was here.
Yeah.
No. Oh, then you
Yeah, she's been-
No, I think with that angle in that back alleyway, that definitely helps visibility for that intersection, so. I think it looks nice, I have no questions. Don't hate the mailman. I live in Old Town Greenwood too, so.
We probably.
Give him a bottle of water if it's the summertime.
Mr. Gilbert? No questions. Mr. King?
No, I think it looks good.
Ms. Peters?
I have no questions.
I have, I guess I have a couple quick comments or questions. Well, one, I guess, given the letter, staff, I'm assuming, from your perspective, what do you think it does to the safety view? Because it looks to me like there is no impact on the view from safety.
They did cut out that edge section of it, which was like the previous fence that had been there for a while. And we also spoke with a member of the engineering team at the city, and they did not find any particular issue with it.
I think, just to add to it, I think, the low traffic area and also the narrower streets, especially with alleyways, you should not be driving fast through an alleyway. That's, we have very minimal concerns about this being a visibility issue, especially with that notch being cut out. And I think, as I mentioned, it basically follows the footprint of the fence that was previously there. So the people that use that alley are already used to this being designed this way.
And just to clarify, so it follows the footprint, but they did add the one corner, right? I mean, the one piece is additional, or is that's always been there? They just cut it off at an angle?
No, so the whole section of the fence that is kind of the back portion of the property had been there, well, it was replaced. It's mainly up towards the front of the house that they added a little bit of it, a new section to it.
Okay. I was gonna say, for continuity purposes, it would not make sense to do something different.
But yeah, the area, they are refencing an area that was already fenced, just adding a little bit more different area.
And I mean, I do think from a criteria standpoint, certainly not impacting the value of the home. Most of the evidence we've heard tonight is not impacting the value of any homes nearby. There seems to be some peculiarity to the corner lot as well as the safety issues that were pointed out with people crossing through the yard. So I think there's definitely evidence there from my point of view. So with that, I have no further questions or comments. I will take a motion to admit all the evidence in the record. Oh, weird.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Knoll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I'll take a motion on the docket itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with no conditions on request number 1.
A motion to approve with no conditions, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. I will take a motion to direct the Corporation's Council to draft written findings of fact.
We got 2 more.
Two more
Oh,
conditions.
we have, sorry. We heard it as 1, so that was request number 1 to allow a 6-foot fence in the front yard. All right, request number 2 to allow a fence in the front yard to exceed 50% opacity.
Move to approve this with no objections.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. And then the third one, to allow a fence to be partially located within a visibility triangle for a rear alley.
Move to approve with no conditions.
Second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Now I'll take a motion to direct the Corporation's Council to draft written findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation's Council office to draft written findings of fact regarding a decision on the variance request which presented variance petition number BZA 2023-031. Said findings specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding the petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Moll, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Any announcements?
Yes, I have one announcement. This is just an announcement that I'll probably be trying to mention throughout all of our public hearings. We do have an in-person community workshop coming up for the comprehensive plan. Encourage you guys as kind of ambassadors of the city of Greenwood to be sharing this information with your friends, family, everyone you see. The first in-person workshop is going to be Tuesday, September 12th. It's going to be at the Greenwood Public Library, which is just across the street. And it will be from 4:30 till 7:30 p.m. You don't have to get there at 4:30 and stay till 7:30. It's kind of a rolling time. There'll be multiple little presentations, activities, time for one-on-one talks and questions. So I'd encourage you guys to all try to be there and to let throughout the night, vary your times, not have a quorum at a table, but and then to encourage your friends and family to come. But that's all.
Thank you. Anything additional? Ms. Foster?
Nothing from legal.
Seeing none, motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Stop the recording.